In the heart of 19th century Yorubaland, a storm was brewing. A land once ruled by the mighty Oyo Empire had splintered into rival kingdoms, proud, fierce, and restless. Among them rose a new power, Ibadan, a city forged in the fires of war, hungry for dominance. But its ambition would soon be challenged. From the hills of Ekiti to the forest of Ijesha, the drums of resistance echoed. A confederacy was forming. Warriors sharpening their blades. Chiefs sending secret emissaries. Then, the first cannon roared. And with it, began the longest and most devastating civil war in Yoruba history. This was the Kiriji War. To understand the Kiriji War, we must first understand the ashes it rose from. For centuries, the Oyo Empire stood as the supreme power of Yorubaland, its cavalry feared, its Alefin revered. But empires crumble, and Oyo was no exception. Internal strife, Fulani invasions from the north, and the transatlantic slave trade tore the empire apart. In its place rose city-states, Ibadan, Ije, Egba, Ekiti, Ijesha, each seeking survival and supremacy. Ibadan, filled with hardened warriors and ex-slaves, grew into a military machine. It offered protection to smaller towns, at a cost. Vassal states were forced to send tributes, cowries, slaves, food, and bend to Ibadan's authority. Many resented it. Especially in the east, where the proud kingdoms of Ekiti and Ijesha refused to kneel. They saw Ibadan not as protector, but as oppressor. Whispers of rebellion began. Secret meetings in palace chambers. And as the whip cracked harder, those whispers turned to war cries. Yorubaland was on the edge. The year was 1877. A single gunshot in the town of Okemesai set off a chain of fury, and the Kiriji War began. Named after the thunderous sound of cannon fire, Kiriji. Kiriji. The battlefield echoed with the rhythm of death. The Ekiti-Parapo forces marched west, confronting Ibadan's feared commanders. Ibadan, battle-tested and ruthless, responded with overwhelming force. But this time, their enemy was not just a band of rebels, it was an army with vision and vengeance. At Imisia, the first major confrontation shook the land. Cannons blasted through forest, warriors clashed with cutlasses, and blood soaked the soil. The war, expected to end quickly, dragged on. Neither side willing to surrender. Neither side able to claim total victory. And so, a war meant to last weeks, stretched into years. Yorubaland was at war with itself, and the fire was only beginning to spread. As the war dragged on, the battlefield shifted across Yorubaland, from the rocky hills of Egbejo to the sacred groves of Alife. Each side struck, retreated, and struck again. At Oten, at Ido-Ekiti, and again at Imisia, thousands died without a decisive winner. The warriors fought with muskets, cannons, and charms, mixing European weapons with ancient Yoruba warfare. Ogden led daring ambushes. Ibadan generals countered with crushing raids. But the longer the war lasted, the clearer it became, no one could win outright. Farms were abandoned. Markets deserted. Families scattered. What began as a struggle for liberation was becoming a war of attrition. And still, neither side would yield. By the mid-1880s, after nearly a decade of battle, the war had no end in sight. Only blood and silence between volleys. By the 6th year of war, the toll was no longer just measured in victories or losses, but in suffering. Villages were emptied, homes reduced to ashes. Fields once lush with yam and maize turned to battlegrounds or graves. Famine crept in. Children cried not just from fear, but from hunger. Families fled, becoming refugees in their own land, seeking safety in distant kingdoms like Abeokuta, Ondo, and Lagos. Trade collapsed. Sacred festivals halted. The Yoruba world, once vibrant and organized, had fallen into chaos. Even warriors began to question, why are we still fighting? What began as a war for freedom was now a war of survival. And still, the guns did not fall silent. As the war ravaged Yorubaland, distant powers watched closely. The British Empire, expanding its influence in West Africa, saw an opportunity. Missionaries and colonial agents arrived, preaching peace, but with a firm hand behind their words. In 1886, under growing pressure, the warring parties agreed to talks brokered by the British. The long-awaited peace treaty promised disarmament and an end to bloodshed. But the terms came with a price: British political and economic control. By 1893, the war was finally over. Ibadan's dominance had waned, and the Ekiti-Parapo Confederacy had achieved recognition. Yet, Yorubaland was forever changed. A land battered by war, now stepping into the shadow of colonial rule. With the war behind them, Yorubaland faced a new challenge: rebuilding a fractured land. The old warrior age gave way to new ideas and leaders: scholars, merchants, and Christian missionaries. Colonial administration spread, reshaping politics and society. The powerful kingdoms of the past adapted or faded. Yet, the memories of Kiriji endured, a reminder of courage, sacrifice, and the cost of division. This war forged a new Yoruba identity, one of resilience and unity born from hardship. And as the 20th century dawned, Yorubaland prepared to take its place in a rapidly changing Nigeria. The Kiriji War was more than a battle for land, it was a battle for identity and freedom. Generals like Ogdembe and Fobomi became legends, their names etched into Yoruba history. They inspired generations to stand firm against oppression, to fight for justice and dignity. Songs were sung, stories passed from elders to children, keeping their spirit alive. Their courage showed that unity could challenge even the most powerful foes. Though the war ended, its lessons endured, a testament to the strength of a people united by hope and defiance. More than a century later, the Kiriji War still resonates across Yorubaland. It reminds us of the dangers of division and the power of unity. The scars of war teach us the value of peace and the cost of pride. Today, Yorubaland celebrates its rich heritage, honoring those who fought and fell. Their story inspires new generations to build bridges, not walls. Kiriji is a call to remember our past, and to choose a future shaped by understanding, courage, and hope.